when the front snout snapped off, it pushed all the oil right out the front of the motor, and it just immediately ignited, and fireballs were just coming out of both sides of the car.
Guys, it's Austin with Hot Rod Heaven. I'm here with Zach today to talk a little bit about his ride. This one is pretty cool, very special, and definitely really fast. So I'm excited to jump into this. Zach, appreciate you doing this with me, man. Tell us a little bit about what the car is and also a little bit about the history of this ride.
So this car was originally purchased by Brett LaSala, and he started racing the car, I want to say probably 14, 15, and he originally put a CPR single turbo on it and started racing it at Speed World. It's the first time I saw the car run, and immediately fell in love with the car.
He was doing pretty well with the car. How did you get into the position of now owning it?
So that was the first time I met Brett, is at that event. And from there, I followed the car just like many people did. I watched him race all kinds of different events. And one of them most notable was at Mod Nationals in 2018. I was just standing at the starting line watching him take off, and he stood the car up on the rear bumper. And that one just kind of like landmarked it right in my brain that is just one awesome car. And at the time, I never thought I would ever be able to purchase the car or own the car, because I didn't even think he'd ever sell it. As things kind of progressed, after I was racing this car for a couple years, I had some issues with the transmission, and Brett ran his first 6 with this car, listed it for sale right after Mod Nationals, and it just seemed like the perfect time.
A lot of people probably think, oh, you just bought the car, now you're going fast, but there's a backstory behind the car actually caught on fire, and you have done a lot more to that than just buying the car and going racing, correct?
A ton. So I was at Mod Nationals in 2022. It would have been the same year I purchased the car, and the car was on a pass. It ran a 7.1 even with the crank braking before the quarter mile. But when the front snout snapped off, it pushed all the oil right out the front of the motor, and of course the hot side's right there, and it just immediately ignited, and fireballs were just coming out of both sides of the car. Boiled the brake lines.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I lost my brakes, lost my visibility, lost the motor, and ran into the sand trap, pushed the whole cold side in. So it was a good time to go ahead and make it my own, and we did a complete revision of the car.
How scary was that when that happened to you? Were you kind of freaking out? Like, what was going through your mind in that moment?
Yeah, you know what's kind of crazy is it wasn't that scary until I had zero visibility.
Yeah.
Because of the oil film that was all over the windshield. And so I knew that I was going to run off the track, but I didn't know when.
Oh,
so it's
yeah.
almost like closing your eyes.
Totally.
So if you can see where you're going, it's not that scary. But when you don't even know where you're going, that was the scariest part. So the motor is a fast forward race engine build. Consists of a Predator 5.2 block that's been sleeved. We have the aluminum rods and Manley pistons, plasma and intake manifold, and then precision 76-75 mirror image turbos creating the boost. I did go over to a dry sump system. We went to all Rife sensors. I mean, so like there's so much new, but yet there's so much that's still fairly similar to the original engine that he ran in the car.
Totally.
Because there's not that much you're going to reinvent the wheel. Combo's been pretty solid. It makes a little over 2,000 horsepower. Then it's backed up by a close ratio M&M Turbo 400 transmission. And then on the rear, we have a TRZ 9-inch with a factory style 3-link.
With this build, I mean, I know you said it makes 2,000, which blows my mind because you're driving this during sick week. What is that kind of like driving this as a street car?
Well, so if you're not getting into it, it drives pretty easy. The challenge with it is, unless you really purposely try to make this thing as detuned as you could make it, basically gate pressure, you really can't get on it on the street.
Totally.
So from a fun aspect, a car, making 1,400 horsepower is actually a little bit more fun on the street because you can really kind of get on it and use some of that power.
For sure.
Where with this thing, when the boost comes in, you'd have to be pretty careful on the street.
Yeah, totally. You did Sick Week last year. How was your experience doing that, and what has been your best time in this car as well?
So my best time with this car has been a 7.1. Hopefully we're going to run some 680s, 690s here shortly.
Yeah.
We really haven't leaned on the car very hard since the refresh, because we just knew that we were doing Sick Week. I was in modified for Sick Week.
Gotcha.
So the person right ahead of me was Brett.
Perfect.
So there really wasn't any point in me trying to, push it really hard
Yeah.
because I had zero chance of, running with Brett. So, we just ran 730s. It was our average for the week. I think I had a 740 going in Friday. So yeah, it was pretty good, solid first start off for Sick Week. It's my first drag and drive I've ever done. So no crazy stories.
Okay.
Yeah, which I'll take. And it was the first maiden event for the car after its complete refresh. So that was a kind of a crazy first event to have a complete rebuild of a car, but it actually worked out really well.
So moving on to the exterior of the car, let's talk about the wheels and tire setup that you have.
So I run a Mickey Thompson front and rear. We have to run a radial tire for most of our classes. So we have front radials and the drag radials in the rear. Weld ultralights in the front. These are a 15x4. And then we have double bead locks in the rear. They're a 15x12.
Okay, yeah, the back looks so good, man. I love the offset on there. What classes do you typically run with this car?
So it depends on the events that we're going to, but a lot of times I'll be racing either street car or we'll just be in a heads-up class, depending, like Mod Nationals or something like that. It'd be King of the 4-valve or something similar. So it has Santa front and rear suspension. So we have the coilovers in the front along with the rear shocks, and they've been able to dial it in, and we also have limiters in the front just to keep the front end from getting too crazy.
What made you decide after the fire and everything to kind of keep it this color?
So I've always liked green. I wouldn't have bought it if I didn't like the green.
Yeah, for sure.
But nevertheless, yeah, it was the Snot Rocket. It was green. I kind of thought about actually doing some sort of a color change to the car just to kind of make it my own since I was getting it all repainted anyway. But I ended up just keeping it green.
It definitely stands out for sure, without a doubt. Moving on to the interior of the car, majority of it looks stock. Did you keep most of that because of your classes, or?
Yeah, so I just tried to keep the car as complete as we could. So we have a Motec C1212 digital dash, we have a Motec computer, Motec PDM, that's all underneath the dash. So we were able to get rid of all the fuses and relays that you typically would have. And then the whole car is outfitted with Rife sensors. So it does have a Motion Raceworks column as well. Steering wheel, I really kind of like this way it's kind of outfitted with the different buttons. So Race Tech containment seats. This makes it so it's very safe, even though I do have a 25.3 cage in here. I don't have to worry about banging my head up against the bars.
I see you put a little bit of carbon on here. Do you have any other carbon on the car or inside the car at all?
So it has a carbon trunk, and then it has the carbon front air vents. Just try to have a little bit in the front and the rear, and also obviously the front grille and the lower air dam are also carbon. But we try to keep the car as much factory as possible with the factory hood, the factory doors, all that kind of good stuff. And obviously still has the locks, power windows, and so forth. And we also try to keep as much factory integration as far as with the Auto Express up and down. And also, like when you close the door, the windows actually drop down. You close the door,
the
window still comes up.
Still just like the factory.
Exactly.
That's amazing, dude.
So I try to keep as much of the street car as I could. That's why I did like the leather stitching on the dash and the A-pillars and all that kind of stuff to try to keep it as much of a street car as I could.
Well, cool, dude. I think that kind of wraps up the interior portion of this video. I say we get a camera in and go for a ride. I'm excited.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. It's crazy to me that we can drive this thing on the street and have no issues, no trouble. You don't get pulled over. I thought that was on us for a second. We're just talking about how it's crazy we can drive this, and then
that would be hilarious, right?
Oh my gosh! So what kind of got you into cars and racing to begin with?
So my dad was a mechanic, service manager. He used to race an old '57 Chevy.
Okay.
And he was always into cars. I started off a Chevy guy, migrated over to a Ford guy when I wanted to go fast, and it's always been fun since then.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I see what you mean with the suspension wise. Definitely, I can feel the bumps for sure.
It's firm.
When you're doing Sick Week, do you change it at all when you go for the long cruises, or you just drive it how it's set up for the track?
So I should have, but I wanted as little to have to mess with every single day as possible, so I left it this way. But if you do loosen up the shocks, I mean, it rides super soft and nice, but it's a race car.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a street race car.
Street race car.
about does it for this video, guys. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this with more hot rods, make sure that you subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next time.